Very simply put, I help patient investors build and diversify primarily their retirement portfolios by investing in land that is strategically placed in the path of growth. 7 to 10 years is an average hold period. And your exit strategy is you sell that land to a developer who wants to build a 1,000-acre solar farm, a shopping center, a football field, an apartment building, some big project. And that is the basic concept. Buy land, hold, sell to a developer, make very generous returns.
Welcome to the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. In the Champions Corner edition, I'm Mike Deaton, and together with Ligia, my co-host in life, business, and this podcast, we're taking you into the training room, deep in the dojo, sharing the secrets of what it takes to forge a champion. We're digging deep into mindset mastery, high-performance habits, best-in-class behaviors, and bringing you the tips and techniques that maximize human potential, brought to you from some of the best in the business.
So grab your buds and your seat. Hit subscribe and get ready to up your game. Let's do the show.
Let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. Today we're exploring two things we love, passive investing and land, with Brad Warren, a former international business coach turned land banking specialist.
Brad's career has spanned over 40 years, during which he traveled to 19 countries, coached more than 500 business owners, and has spoken to audiences of over 60,000 people. After decades in the coaching, Brad transitioned into land banking in 2018, where he now helps patient investors build generational wealth by strategically investing in land placed in the path of growth. In this episode, Brad unpacks the fundamentals of what the hell land banking is, explaining how it works and why it's a great option for long-term passive investment. We also discuss the importance of patience in this type of real estate investing, with Brad sharing key stories about solar farm developments and just how investors can get involved with minimal hands-on effort. Whether you're looking for a new investment avenue or curious about how to get started in land, Brad provides deep insights into the benefits and strategies behind this powerful passive investment approach.
Let's get into it with Brad Warren.
Let's do it. Brad Warren, welcome to the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. We're excited to have you on today and talk all things land.
Yes, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. This is going to be a fun one. We've had a previous conversation, but we're all in the land business in various formats here. But we often encounter people who are interested. The way we practice it is a bit more of an active pursuit. It's a business. It's buying, selling, trading. But we do encounter a lot of people that ask us if they can get in on the good gig passively. So this will be a good one to open up that avenue as an option of how to participate in the cash flow and the appreciation and the ease of land relative to some other asset classes in a passive way. So excited to talk about it.
All right, so am I.
Yeah, I bet. I guess before we dive into the details of land banking and kind of all the ins and outs of that, give us a little background on yourself, where you are, where you came from, how you got into land banking.
All right, I'm 73 years old, so it would be a very long story to give a lot of the background.
That's a whole other podcast.
Let me start with how I got into land banking. So I do a quarterly net worth statement. Have been doing it since March of 1989, when my wife and I were engaged to get married a few months later. And so it's December 3rd, 2011. Just imagine, it's the end of the quarter. It was actually the end of the year. I do the net worth statement, and I noticed something very interesting. I could not retire. There wasn't enough money on my own to get. My wife had money. She worked for Oracle. She had a 401k. She had socked away a lot of money. It had done very well. So she could retire by herself. Together we could retire. But if I was a single guy at that point and I needed to retire in the next few years, couldn't do it. This was not good. So I called my land banking friend. Her name is Marcella Silva. She comes over to the house January 2012. And just like a real estate agent would come to do a listing presentation, she came and did her land banking presentation in front of my wife and I. At the end, my wife stood up and said, "No, thanks. Interested. Too long of a hold period. Too much to invest all at once. I don't get it," and walked out of the room. I turned to Marcella and said, "Get me a property." And because I understood that long term, over time, my money would grow big enough for me to have enough to retire on. So 2 months later, I bought my first property. That was 2012. 2013, I got another. 2014, I got another. And by the way, over those couple of years, I also became a finder. A finder is a referral partner. So I started telling everybody about land, referred them to Marcella, and she paid me a referral fee. So I was making literally tens of thousands of dollars over that 3-year period. And I'm going to see Marcella speak at a hotel. This is like in 2015. So it's 3 years later. My wife says, I want to go. I said, why do you want to go? You're not interested in land. She says, you've been doing this for 3 years. You fly down, you have these little bags with dirt from the property that you own. You go to the company annual meeting. You've met the CEO and all the staff. Maybe I missed something, but I'm not going to buy. The whole way in the car, Mike and Ligia, she's going, I'm not going to buy. I said, great, you don't have to buy. Just come and hear Marcella, and then we'll go to the gym when it's over. So we had our gym bags in the car. We got there, 2-hour presentation. The CEO and Marcella do this 2-hour presentation. The break is at noon, and Marcella says, oh, by the way, please stick around. If you're interested, we have 4 properties for sale. I said, okay, Marie, we got to go now. She says, I want to see the properties. I said, but you aren't going to buy anything. I said, well, I just want to see what they have. Very long story, very short. She buys 2 out of the 4 that were available. She had her checkbook with her, and the whole way home in the car, I'm like, I thought you weren't going to buy. I thought you weren't going to buy. She said, shut up, drive the car. I get it. I understand. I see the possibilities. So that was properties number 4 and 5. And since then, we've bought 6 more. So we actually now own 11 properties, a few million square feet of developable land. And that's how I got into land banking. And just to end the story, in 2018, I actually got my real estate license and joined Marcella's team as the first agent on her team. And now I actually sell the dirt.
Okay. So your connection, Marcella, already had a land banking business. It sounded like there was a company doing this already because you referenced the COO
Right.
giving a presentation and stuff. So this is a concept and a business that's predated your entry into it. And was Marcella a collegial connection of yours, or did you know her specifically through her land banking venture? Or
I met her through a networking group. She was actually at that point was doing a little bit of land banking, but she was working at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. She had what's called a Q clearance, which is the highest security clearance in the United States. She was on track to work for the government for the rest of her life, move up very predictably, and have a very comfortable life. She was in the group. I was there as a business coach at the time. She actually hired me as her business coach to guide her through a decision of whether to leave the lab and go full-time into land banking. I successfully helped her as a business coach get through that. She left the lab, got into land banking full-time. So I knew her from the networking group, but it was 2 years of knowing her before I finally had her come to the house to do the presentation. So very interesting story. By the way, she's now my coach. What goes around comes around.
it's a two-way street, really great coaching relationship. As coaches, we get
Yes.
as much or more oftentimes than we give. So
Yes, you learn just as much on a coaching call as the person that you're coaching. And then it's who's the teacher and who's the student.
it's very symbiotic. I like it that way. It's good. Okay. So we don't bury the lead, which I'm not even sure what that means, but it sounds like a phrase I should use at this moment. Let's get into land banking then, since you teased it a little bit. Give us the 50,000 foot or the really high level view of land banking, and then we can drill into the different aspects of it.
Very simply put, I help patient investors build and diversify primarily their retirement portfolios by investing in land that is strategically placed in the path of growth. It's within a 60-mile radius of downtown LA, and we can get into that a little later, but that's where the land is. They buy and hold. We're very conservative. We say 7 to 10 years is an average hold period. And your exit strategy is you sell that land to a developer who wants to build a 1,000-acre solar farm, a shopping center, a football field, an apartment building, some big project. And that is the basic concept. Buy land, hold, sell to a developer, make very generous returns.
So it's an appreciation play largely, right? You're buying
Totally.
ideally, right? That's a business model. So you're buying it strategically, as you said, you're looking for path of growth for different types of things. So in practicality, large question here, but let's take it in bite-sized chunks. Like in practicality, how does this work? So maybe starting from you as, I forget the title you used, but as the land sourcer. not the sorcerer, but
Not this closer, right? Now, okay, all right.
I was just going to
It's
summarize.
it
So
was
it
very
sounds-
big. So I'll chunk it down. The company I work for has been around for 45 years. Started by the dad, now run by the son, who is a PhD in economics. Brilliant guy, one of the smartest people I've ever met. The basic way that the company works, we have a research and acquisition department, several people who, even as you and I are talking right now, they are doing all the research, the due diligence. I know in your model, you train people how to do that for themselves, right? If I'm not mistaken, you teach them how to find the land, how to negotiate it.
Right.
We do all of that due diligence for them. That's why our prices are different. You can get in with you guys for sometimes several $100s. Our minimum investment is $25,000. So a little bit different in that term. But we research, we buy property. Our company actually buys the property first. It's called first movers risk. We're buying the property and we put it in inventory and we hold it until an investor says, okay, Brad, I've met you. I've met Marcella. I've seen the full land banking presentation. I understand it's longer term. I'm using my self-directed IRA. It's got to sit there for 20 years before I can touch it anyway, because I'm in my 50s or 40s. And yes, I want a property for $35,000. So Marcella goes to the company and says, hi, I have an investor through Brad. He has an investor who wants a property for $35,000, usually plus or minus about 1 or 2. We can't always get it exactly for 35. And Valora looks in its inventory first. Is there a property that they own that's $35,000? If it is, they take it out of inventory. We present it to the client. The client goes, yep, I'll buy that. It's not like buying a house. Put the client in the car, you drive them around, you show them 10 houses. At the end of the day, they don't even remember the first 3 or 4 that they looked at, and they get to pick the 1 out of the 10 that they want to move into. Land banking is different. We present you with a single property. We show you the research that's been done. We're very upfront. Marcella actually spends about 3 hours putting together a half an hour video. It's called a property profile. It's a 30-minute video of her explaining the 3-mile ring. Where is the property? Why is there all this development going on around it? So that you are, I can't use the G word and say it, guaranteed that it'll go up in value, but you're very comfortable knowing that it's in the path of growth, and then you buy it. That's how the basic model works. So it's a lazy person's way of investing. We call it set it and forget it. And you do nothing except once a year, you pay your property tax. And in fact, it's funny. We're talking now, today is October 7th. I have all 11 of our folders on the floor over here for all 11 of our properties. And I just paid the property tax on the first one. I still got 10 more that I have to do. It takes about 3 hours total for me to do all of them. And that's all I do for an entire year. I do no other work. So it's a very hands-off way of investing.
Yeah, very interesting. The question comes to mind about, let's just say I'm coming to you and I want to invest in some land. And so can it be the case that you have one property that I would invest in? And can it be the case that you have one property that, let me phrase this correctly. Let's say you go out and you buy 1 acre and maybe I want to buy that entire 1 acre. Can it also be the case that you buy 1,000 acres and I buy one of those 1,000 acre parcels? Or how is the practicality of the investment going? I understand I'm actually buying the property, but is it a pool of properties, or is it like one, or can it be both?
There's a bunch of questions in there. Let me see if I can unwrap them all. So however, Valor Real Estate Services Incorporated, that's the name of the company. However, they buy the property. If they buy 5 acres, we sell 5 acres. They buy 20 acres, we sell 20. They buy 1, we sell 1. We don't subdivide, which is, I think, what you were alluding to. We don't break it up in smaller parcels. We sell it to the investor the way that we bought it. Obviously, we're selling it to them for more than we paid for. Duh, we have to make money. Our company has to have some cash flow to pay all these people that are doing all the research. So we find the land very cheaply. We buy it. We then mark it up. We sell it to the client, the investor. They buy. They're the ones with the patience and the time to wait the supposedly 7 to 10 years. It can happen sooner. I have several examples of people that have gotten out way sooner. And there are people that still, after 10 years, still have their land and they're just waiting for it to get to be really high in price before they sell it so that they can make a lot of money. Did that answer hopefully what you were?
It does. It does at this point. I think I'm going to take it a step further. Like you mentioned earlier, when we first started a solar farm, that's got to be 100+ acres, let's say.
1,000.
Yeah. And so
Yeah, big.
yeah, exactly. And so your company, Velour, you called it?
Yes, VELUR.
Okay. There's not, we know from from running our business, there's not a lot of 1,000+ acre parcels out there, right? Counties are subdividing it already, or a developer or somebody has come along and said, hey, I'm going to buy this
Correct.
larger parcel and subdivide it in. So it's already pieced down. And so would the company then
Correct.
go out and find, let's say they find 1,000 acres, but it's not 1,000 acre parcel, it's a bunch of bits and pieces. And so they may be able to buy this entire 1,000 acre grid, or it's piecemeal in there where some people don't want to sell. They're like, no, I'm not selling to you, or
let me jump in
or something. Yeah.
There's no such thing as 1,000 acres. That doesn't happen. The biggest parcel I think I've ever seen us sell is about 80, maybe 100. And that is very unusual, and it's very expensive, and very few people can even afford to buy those. Most of our sales are 5, 2.5, 10, in that vicinity. But you're right. Let's say the screen, people or anybody that's not listening to this, but actually watching it, does it come out as a video that they can watch as well?
It's both audio and video. So some people will get to see your air diagram, others.
Okay. So imagine a square. Okay.
Yeah.
And inside that square, let's say it's section, which is 640 acres. And the company, the energy company that's going to build a solar farm, is going to build it within that boundary. Okay. So it's a 1 mile square, 640 acres. They may have to negotiate with 3 or 4 different people, 2 acres here, 5 acres there, 1.25 acres over here. And it may take them 2 years to consolidate, or we call it agglomerate, meaning to put it all together into one giant parcel. So they may start building. Let's say they get 100 acres. They manage to find 10 people with 10 acres each, all touching one another, and they get 100 acres. They may start putting the panels up on that 100 acres to get started. But in the meantime, they keep buying and buying until they've filled in the boundaries of project, whatever that project is. And it can vary in size. We're seeing a lot of projects now, 1,000 acres, 1,200 acres, 900 acres. They're fairly large. And so that's how it works.
Okay. Yeah.
And by the way, you did allude to what if somebody doesn't want to buy, doesn't want to sell. So let's say one person with 1 acre, let's say they own 1 acre. Okay. Smallest possible partition is 1 acre. And it's right in the middle. They're not going to sit there with that land when the company, the energy company, is offering them 5, 6, 7-fold over what they paid for it. And sometimes way more than that. Maybe they own the land that grandma bought for $5,000. This energy company can make $100,000 a month in electricity. So they're going to buy this land or possibly lease it. And the owner is not going to refuse. Unless they're stupid and absolutely crazy.
You can't find them or something. Yeah.
They got a property worth $5,000. Somebody now is offering them $100,000 for the property. Yeah, they're going to sell. They're going to get rid of it. So it's just a question of how good is this energy company at negotiating, which leads me to digress for a second. Our company provides free negotiation coaching. Every one of my investors, when they get an offer, they don't even talk to the company, the developer that wants to buy it. They call me first, and I get a hold of Marcella. We talk to the CEO, and we strategize over we coach them on how to approach that developer to maximize their return. Because we know that we may have other Velour investors in the same area who have already gotten offers. We're going to tell my client, oh, by the way, we have 3 other people that are like 100 yards from you. Here are the 3 offers they've gotten. Make sure you keep that in mind, because the energy company is going to lowball. They're going to try to steal the land for the least amount of money that they can pay. And when our client is now armed with this information, they can negotiate to get into what we call the 3 to 7x zone. 3 to 7 times their return is what they're looking for their ROI. So very important to be a good negotiator, and we can help with that as well.
Yeah, that's great.
I also have a question for now.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the minimum investment in the company is 25K.
Correct.
And this is very intriguing. So hypothetically, Mike and I only have 25K for now to invest. In case you don't currently have a property available for that value, do you guys offer creative solutions? Can we potentially buy a property in joint venture? It's a joint tenants with another investor if we don't have enough for now to purchase a piece of property in your portfolio? Or are we placed on a waiting list until you have something available for the value that we have to invest?
You guys are so smart. I love you. I love both of you. Professional kind of way. Okay. So you brought up a very good point. Let's say you say 25,000 and I go to Marcella, she goes to the CEO or whoever's in charge of inventory. And there could be a couple of scenarios. First of all, there may be 3 people in front of you who also want 25,000. And Valor doesn't have 4 properties in that range. So you would go on a wait list. You'd be number 4 until they were all taken care of. If Valor doesn't have those properties, they immediately go to the research and acquisition department and say, stop what you're doing, focus on 25,000. We have 4 people lined up right now with cash burning a hole in their pocket, and they want to buy right now. That directs the research and acquisition department where to go look. So they start looking for properties 25, 26, 24, something in that range. And then you would get yours in time. If you're first in line and there's one in inventory, you get that one. Now, you also brought up investing with others. The law in California is you are allowed to invest with up to 4 non-family members, meaning you and 3 others, and up to 8 family members. And I don't know, it's parents, spouses, children. I don't know about grandchildren, grandparents, aunts, uncles. There's laws about it, which I don't know because we never get anybody doing it with that many. But my first property I actually bought with 3 other people. I didn't even know. It was 115,000, 1.25 acre mixed use property. And I didn't have 115. So I bought 17% of that property. A second person got 17%, a third got 22, and a fourth got 44. And if you add 44, 22, 17, 17, it should come out to 100. And the 4 of us, 3 people I don't even know, we own that property together in those proportions. There's pros and cons to investing with others, i.e., we need to stay friends, we need to get along, we need to all agree on the exit price because one of us cannot sell our portion without the other 3 agreeing. There's pros and cons. If you're going in with family, make sure they're family that you like and that you get along with, and that you're not going to, they're not coming to Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving because we hate them now. That's not a good idea. Be very careful if you're going to go in with others.
Yes.
Did Brad answer the questions?
Yes,
you had?
yes. Very much. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to back up and summarize here. So Company Valor is out there doing research on various things, which I'm a little curious to tap into here in a second as well. You're finding properties, acquiring them into your inventory, and then allowing, I'll say investors, but allowing people to come and purchase those properties as an investment based on the thesis that you present them and say, hey, this is why this property is positioned well for X in the future. Right? On the research side of the business, certainly don't want to get in, too far behind the curtain, but I guess the team is, and from our previous conversation, I don't know if we clarified it on this call, but you guys are looking in and around a certain radius of the Los Angeles area. And I don't know if you have other pockets that you and or the company are looking at, but is that correct? Like 60 miles, I think you said, or something, but.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. 60-mile radius around downtown LA. Obviously, we rule out the land that's under the ocean because that 60-mile radius goes out into the Pacific. Mostly we're in the periphery. So Lancaster, Palmdale, Victorville, Adelanto, Paris, Inland Empire, all on the edge. We do go a little bit outside to Palm Springs and Desert Hot Springs. That is outside the 60 miles, but that is pretty much it. However, right now, we are beginning to move outside the 60-mile radius in the northern part, because the solar farms, that's where they're starting to build more of them. The land is cheap. The sun is plentiful. There are high tension power lines already in place that Southern California Edison spent $7 billion, that's with a B for boy, $7 billion putting in high tension power lines to take all of this electricity from the solar panels on the ground into the grid to power the rest of the state of California. And there are laws that require, one SB 100 passed several years ago, over 5 years ago, requires the entire state of California to get all of its electricity for buildings and homes. We're not even talking about the Teslas and the electric vehicles and all that. Just buildings and homes must get 100% of their electricity from renewables by 2045. Solar is the only, we're not going to get there with hydro. We're not going to get there with geothermal. Just ain't going to happen. And you can't, coal, no. Fossil fuels, no. Nuclear, no. Renewable. So that's wind and solar. And right now, solar is way ahead. In fact, the price of solar energy per kilowatt hour has actually about 3 years ago, it fell below the price of energy from fossil fuels. So that is the direction that we're going, and nobody can stop it. I don't care who gets elected as president. You're not going to stop it from happening. It is here. Solar energy is here. It's going to keep being developed. And so we've had to move a little bit out to the northern part of, it's actually southern Kern County. So we moved out of LA County, and now we're in southern Kern County and starting to move up a little further. We call it a TEUR, a Target Electric Utility Region. And that's where they're building all the solar farms. By the way, I know you didn't ask this, but just to recap, when we were talking about the free negotiation, people say, why do you offer free negotiation? Shouldn't you be charging for that? And one of the reasons, amongst many, but one of them is we're getting invaluable information about that project. So our client calls and says, hi, Brad, we own land at such and such an address. We just got a call from XYZ Energy Company, and we've never heard of XYZ Energy Company. And they say, yeah, they're building a project, but we don't know the name. I say, here's what you want. You want to go back and find out the name, the boundaries, when is it going online, how many megawatts is it? Fine. We can't call that energy company. They're not going to tell us because they know who we are. So they're not going to tell us, but they'll tell our client because they want to buy their land. So that client is feeding back to us, oh yeah, the boundaries are here and they're going to break ground in 3 years. Right now, they're just consolidating. Here's what they offered me. And then we hopefully will go buy up more property inside the boundaries because we know there's a project coming. So it's absolutely wonderful information that we get from our investors that we could never get any other way.
Yeah, that's great. It was a topic I wanted to discuss if there was any level of partnership or collaboration or whatever you want to call it. It sounds like not. And so it sounds like you're trying to stay at least a step ahead of the energy companies who are also, I'm sure, out there trying to secure land. However, they run a balance sheet. And so I'm sure they don't want to buy and hold property in excess of a time limit that they don't want to be out there buying property they may never use, or that's going to be 7 years down the road or something. They're trying to service the market today. Makes sense. Are there
they've got their financials worked out. They know where this project's going. They don't back away from, once it's set, it's set. They have to get permits. They start doing all that. They start building the roads and the infrastructure. They start putting the gen tie lines, which takes the electricity from the solar farm through the ground, could be 2 or 3 miles to the high tension power line or a substation. All that's going on. And so they've got it all worked out. You do bring up a point, Mike, that's interesting, is sometimes they'll offer a lease, a 30 or 35-year lease, because they don't have the money to buy the land outright. They'd rather put the payments over time. One of my clients actually got an offer, 30 acres. They own 30 acres. They're in negotiation now, even as we speak. $3,500 per acre for 35 years. If you multiply 3,500 times 30 acres, that's $105,000 a year times 35 years. You're talking about $3.5 million, but they're paying it over time rather than buying that. They might have to pay $1 million for that 30 acres right now. And they just don't have that $1 million in capital to put up. So sometimes you get into this lease business. One of the things we helped the client, my investor, with, they didn't know about something called an escalation clause. You want to keep up with inflation. And we told them about this. It used to be 2%. Now it's about 2.5%. It's heading to 3%. And it means that every year, so the first year they make $105,000. The second year they make $105,000 plus 3%. And then the next year they make $105,000 plus the 3%, and then 3% of that. So it's compounded. So it adds several tens of thousands of dollars over the length of the agreement just by adding one sentence to the contract. There will be an escalation clause of 2.5% per annum, something like that. I'm not giving the exact words, and we told it, we just helped our client make $10, $20, $50,000 more with one sentence. So that's what we do. We help them because by helping them, we're helping ourselves basically as well.
Mhm.
They're going to,
Yeah, makes total sense. So you've mentioned energy, which obviously is a large consumer of land and spender. What other types of industries or businesses are you repurposing or selling the land to? Commercial developers, residential developers? Are there things like that flow in your path of growth equation?
You've alluded to 3 out of the 5. So land is zoned one of 5 ways. And I'll go from least expensive to most expensive. So you have non-residential / agricultural. In our case, that's the solar. We call it a solar farm. It's not going to be a regular farm because the land, you can't grow potatoes and corn and stuff on the land in the high desert. It's 2,000 feet. It's got cacti and sagebrush. So you've got non-residential, agricultural. That's the least expensive. Then residential, as you said, KB Homes, Lennar Homes, D.H. Horton will come in and they'll build hundreds and hundreds of homes at a time. We have industrial, and that's broken down into light industrial and heavy industrial. So those would be manufacturing facilities, places where they build things, stuff like that. You have commercial, which would be an apartment building. It might be a 5-story office building, something like that. And then you have mixed use, which I alluded to earlier, that the first property I bought was actually a mixed use property. And that's where there's a parking lot and a Starbucks and a movie theater and houses and a park and everything. It's a gigantic project. Those are the 5 kinds of land. We don't sell a lot of mixed use because there's just not, it's too expensive. It's basically out of the range of most of our average investors. We don't sell a lot of that. Right now it's solar. By far and away, most of our deals are solar and industrial because of warehouses. And there's a whole long story behind that. Unless you're interested, I'm not going to go into it. But those are the 2 that are getting the most play right now with our company.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have to drill too deep. I was just curious categorically, what are the types people that come would experience? So let's maybe flip a little bit into the investor experience. And Ligia said, okay, we have our self-directed IRA or some funds on the side. We want to invest. What is that? How does that play out for us in terms of both the actual acquisition, but more importantly, or at least from what I'm thinking, the hold period, the returns, the profile that we could expect to look for?
Okay. So I'll do a generic version of me doing a sale. So first I meet somebody. Could be through LinkedIn. It could be at a networking event. They hear me do my 30-second introduction, which is usually all you have time for. I sell dirt. I help patient investors, blah, blah, blah. They contact me either during the meeting or after and say, Brad, I'd like to find out more about dirt. Okay, great. I get on a Zoom call. We chat. I ask, first of all, I go to LinkedIn and I go to Facebook and I look them up and I try to connect with them so that I can read as much about them as possible, see if they're nice, see if there's somebody I want to work with, because I'm screening them while they're also screening me. It's a 2-way process. So we get on a Zoom call and we chat for a while. I ask them a whole bunch of questions. They tell me their investment goals. They tell me how much money they have. I tell them the minimums, give them some information. And they say, yeah, this is very interesting. I want to learn more first. I say, great. I send them to Marcella's presentation. She does a 1-hour presentation. We call it Land Banking 101 because we don't really have a name for it. So it's Land Banking 101. They must, I underline the word must, watch the entire presentation before they're allowed to invest with us. So as an example, right now on this call, if you said to me, okay, Brad, we just decided we've got the 25,000, we want to invest. Have you watched the presentation yet? No, we haven't. Sorry, I can't sell to you. Literally, I cannot sell land to anybody until they see that. Okay, so they watch it. They watch Marcella. They take lots of notes. They get back on a call with me. They say, oh my gosh, she went really deep and wide and said a lot of things that you already told us, but elaborate. And we're definitely ready to invest. And we want to dip our toe in the water at 25,000. Great. Now you get to meet Marcella. Now we do a throughway Zoom. Meet Marcella and let's say it's the 2 of you. And that could last 30 minutes to an hour. And you're asking more questions. and you're getting to meet Marcella. She wants to meet you and understand who you are. By the way, I've already filled out what's called a prospect profile on the two of you, and I've sent it to Marcella. This is a whole bunch of answers that you've given to me in our first conversation, and I've been taking furious notes, and I fill out a form. We call it a prospect profile. So Marcella knows a little bit about you before you even get on the call with her. Finally, at the end of that call with Marcella, she's going to say, so have we answered all your questions? Yes, you have. Do you still want to invest? Yes, we do. What is your price range? And you'll say 25 to 35. Let's just say you gave us a range. Great. We'll get back to you. We hang up the phone, and then we go to the lawyer and do everything that I mentioned earlier about finding a property in that range. She puts together the profile. We get on it. We send you the link. You watch it. You email back to me because you're basically my client. I'm the salesperson in this case. And you would email back to me, Brad, we watched it. It's fantastic. It looks like it's surrounded by solar farms and proposed solar farms. What do we do next? You fill out a 2-page contract. You put down a 3% deposit. We open escrow. And then there's the details of when the final payment is due, blah, blah, blah. And a 21-day close. From the day we open escrow to closing is 21 days or less. And then you get a deed, a California deed of trust that you own the land. It's yours. We pay for the title insurance. In addition to the fee for the land, there's an escrow fee. Any transaction in real estate has an escrow fee. We have our own escrow department, so we're able to keep that fee fairly low. And that's it. You buy the land. At the end, all of my clients have actually gotten a refund because we don't use all the escrow fees. We refund them back to you, and you own the land. And then you're just in touch with me. Right now, I'm going to start letting the people that I'm in partnership with, they have to pay their portion of the property tax. I'm going to start figuring out who owns what percentage and letting them know you owe $78.42. You own 120 cents. I start collecting those checks. I put them all together because you want to send them into the county all together, not separately, because crazy things can happen, as have happened already. So I put them all together and make sure I send it all in. And so that's it. That's a whole land banking process.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned property taxes, and is the reason, I think you mentioned it was going to take a few hours per each of your investments. That kind of typical, or?
I said 3 hours to do 11 properties. So I'm, bless you. Wait, if you only own one property, 10 minutes. It'll take you 10 minutes. Let's say you have your...
That's why, because we pay lots of property taxes for properties we buy and sell, and
Yeah, no, I talked about the cumulative amount of time for me to figure out all the percentages, contact everybody. They get back to me. Finally, I have to wait for all the checks. I have to total them all up and double check and put them in envelopes. Right.
But for the typical investor, you get your tax invoice from the county and you either file online or you send in your check or whatever, right?
And we would always tell people to pay both first and second payments at once. So you're only doing it one time and not 6 months later because you could forget. So do it all at once.
Okay.
And property tax is very low here in California.
Okay.
Because of
And then
Proposition 13.
What can we expect as landowners / investors? Do you have regular quarterly communication that comes out, or are we just checking in now and again, or are we just waiting till somebody knocks on our door?
A little bit of all that. So once a month, one of the regional directors, there's 4 regional directors. Marcella is one of them, and then there's 3 others, and they alternate. And once a month, they do a 30-minute update presentation webinar, and any investor is invited. They're usually like the last Tuesday from 6:30 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Any investor is allowed to come on for free and hear what's going on. And whoever is giving that presentation talks about articles they've read, new city council things that have happened. Once the city council, a zoning change, it actually was on my property. It was on my mixed-use property. It was MU4, mixed-use 4. They rezoned it to MU5, meaning instead of a 4-story building, the developer can build a 5-story building. They just increased the value of that property. Remember I said I paid $115,000? They just increased it in value by $115,000 vertically, not horizontally, sideways. But they made the value of that property go up $100,000 because the developer can build 1 extra story on their hotel or their apartment building. So I love when the city council does stuff like that. We call that like an unearned increment. I didn't do anything for it, and I got a big value increase in my land. So you can come onto those. We haven't done a company-wide headquarters meeting in a long time. COVID stopped that, and we haven't gone back, but we used to do once a year. We would have top investors came with their agent, the person that was the land banking consultant. We'd have 100 people at the office in Southern California. We haven't done those for a while. We do have a trip once a year for the top producers, and they occasionally will bring some of their best investors along with them and their best finders, their referral partners. And we have a big company meeting there once a year. And this year it was on a cruise ship on the Lower Danube in Southeast Europe. Next year, we're going to be in Scotland. So that's once a year. And then you can call me anytime. You got a question? Brad, I just got something from somebody the other day. Brad, it's property tax time. Where do I get my bills? This is like, I've done this 8 times for you. Just write it down this time, please. No, I never say that out loud, but I'm thinking that. So yeah.
It's only once a year. We forget. So,
yeah. We'll try to stay in touch with our people and update them on a regular basis.
Okay. Yeah. So we've gotten in touch with you guys. We had some money to invest. You presented maybe a couple of options. Hey, we've got one in the north. It's big solar path of growth. You might be interested in this, whatever. Or maybe there's one here that's light industrial or something. And Ligia and I talk about it. We go, hey, we really like the light industrial. So beyond that, it's really just staying plugged in. And I'm sure that the company in your research department is also staying in tune with, are things actually moving in that way? Has the city or county shifted gears or done something? And that would be the kind of communication I guess we would expect over I think you said 3 to 7 years is the target window of
7 to 10 years. 3 to 7x is the return. 7 to 10 is the whole period. But yes, on those free Tuesday night updates, we will hear about newspaper articles. They'll actually, like, one of the PowerPoint slides will be a front page story with the mayor talking about breaking ground on a new hospital. And all of my clients are there with their plat maps and they're saying, am I close to that one? Is that near me? But yeah, we go to city council meetings. We read the general plan. When they do an update, we follow that. We listen to speakers that the city has. We also get calls from the county and the city of LA because we own maps that show things that they don't know about, like an easement. There may be an easement through a piece of property rendering it undevelopable. The county or the city of LA will call us and say, hey, we're thinking of moving in this direction to build something. And we'll look it up and we'll say, oh, don't go there. There's like an easement through 4 properties running right there. And it's going to prevent you from moving west or east or north or south or whatever. So we get valuable information from the city and the county because we own maps that they don't even have. We're the only ones that own it. That does, again, make our company very unique in that respect. Yeah. It's called the map room, and you get to see it when you're an investor. And I love maps. I used to do a lot of backpacking, and I love topo maps and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO took my wife and I into the map room when we went down to visit the company this was pre-COVID. And my eyes just glazed over. There were maps hanging on every wall. They had these rows and rows of them and a box of microfiche. Now, I don't know if your listeners are very young. They don't even know what microfiche is. But when I was in 1967, 68, 69, I'm in high school and I would go to the library to do research. We didn't have Wikipedia. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google. None of that existed. And so you would pull out this microfiche, which was a small piece of film. You'd put it on an overhead projector and project it onto a screen in a corner of the library. And you would move it around and it would have thousands of pieces of information, like newspapers. It would have 10 years of the front page of the New York Times. And you could locate the one page you wanted to find for your report on that particular subject. And you were going to use that information. And so you would move it around and then you would write your notes down by hand. So that box of microfiche is probably worth several million dollars in value to us in terms of what it shows us about the land. And that way we discuss I didn't mention this earlier, for every 30 properties that the research and acquisition department researches, we buy 1. We reject 29 as undevelopable and not going to fit our model, not in the path of growth. It could be in a sensitive ecological area, an SEA. It could have, like I said, this easement going down the middle of it, but we reject 29 out of every 30 that we look at. So research and acquisition does its homework.
That's great. Okay, we've talked through a little bit the investment process. You touched on some of the returns that are typical or can be expected. What about the risk side of the equation? What are the risks as investors coming into this?
There are always risks when you invest in anything. I don't care if it's crypto, the stock market, flipping, land, it doesn't matter. There's always risk. We try to mitigate that as much as possible by the research that we do prior to buying the land. We like to say the biggest risk in the way that we do land banking is the investor themselves getting impatient. I'll give you an example. One of my clients bought a solar property, understood the wait period. A year later, he calls me and says, Brad, how's my land doing? I said, Rick, are you getting on the Tuesday night updates? You would hear about what's going on. He says, no, I haven't done that. I said, I don't want you to call me ever again unless you start watching those. I said, oh, by the way, the area where your land is doesn't get a lot of rain, maybe 3 inches a year. It actually rained last night and your land is wet and tomorrow it'll be dry. That's how your land is doing. Remember, 7 to 10 years, it's been run. Don't call me for 6 more years. Now, I was joking a little. We laughed about it and he hung up the phone. About 2 years later, I get a text with a selfie attached to it. And I'm looking at it and it's him and his wife. And in the background is a solar farm. So I call him up. I said, Rick, what's this picture? He says, oh, that's me and my wife across the street from our property with a brand new solar field that just got built across the street from us. We get it. We understand. We just have to wait and be patient. It's only been 3 years. You told us 7 to 10, but they're going to be building a solar farm on our property someday. And if we wait, we know we're going to get the returns. And by the way, he then bought a second property right after taking that picture. He bought another one. So that's the biggest risk, is the investor not having patience. And it could be more than 10 years. My properties are more than 10 years old. I haven't sold them. And people go, aren't you concerned? You got that mixed use property. Aren't you concerned about it? It's been 12 years. I said, let me put it to you this way. I paid $2.17 per square foot for my investment in that property. I know of properties, because Valero's told me this, that are a half a mile away within the 1 mile radius that we talk about in the Land Banking 101 that are selling for over $8 a square foot. Do you think I will sell my property for any less than that? No, that's a 4-fold increase. That's right. Oh, did I tell you about the city council rezoning it to MU? So that now that property is worth, at a minimum, 5 times what we paid. So 115 times 5 is 575,000. I don't know, something like that. We're not selling that property for anything less than 575,000. So if I got to wait a couple more years, get 5-fold return on my investment, okay. By the way, we're expecting 10-fold on that particular mixed-use property. We're going to probably hold until we get $1 million. And if it took us 20 years, okay, 115 to $1 million in 20 years, and I didn't do anything except 10 minutes a year to pay my property tax, I can live with that. But you got to have the wrong view. And by the way, if I'm not around in that 20 years, I'll be 93, 20 years from now. But another 8 years from now, I'll be 81. If I don't make it, my daughter gets it. She'll get the $1 million. She won't get the $1 million because I only own 17%. She'll get whatever that portion is.
Yeah,
but
that fraction
she'll
of
be
it.
very happy that I waited.
So it's a win for sure.
It's a win for everybody. The land gets used for what it's supposed to be used for. The maximum the best use for the land. Our company makes money. I make money. Marcella makes money, and my investors make a lot of money. So everybody's happy. It's a win.
This is great. So yeah, I love it. Definitely, as you describe it in your elevator pitch and here, it's the patient investor's play. It's not somebody who needs next month or in 12 months or whatever you want to put this in and let it go. I would imagine the appreciation profile is a little like a hockey stick, right? As you get closer to the development point or somebody decides, then the value really starts to accelerate in terms, in most cases. Okay, maybe it doesn't happen.
Almost every case, it is exactly as you described. It's nothing, a lot, and it goes up. And it starts at that point when you get your first serious offer. That kind of, and by the way, they try to steal the land. The first offer is not even in the ballpark, but at that point, this land is going to sell. Somebody needs it for a project. I just have to be a little more patient now. And the big gains all come at the end where we step in, we start helping you negotiate. And it's one of my clients, they had their property, they paid $750,000 for a huge property. I think it was 30 acres, 20 acres. And it was, I believe it was commercial. And she was the client from hell. She kept calling me every year. I'm complaining. I'm getting these lowball offers and I never should have invested with you. And 5 years to almost to the day, she sold the property for $2 million. She didn't get 3. We were trying to coach her. She wouldn't even take our coaching. She was so adamant and stubborn that she knew more than us about land banking. She wanted to do her own negotiations. We would have gotten her at a minimum $2.25 million would have been exactly 3x times her $750,000. She got the $2 million. By the way, never said thank you. Never let us know. It was, I don't know. She's off. She still has 2 more properties, so I'm waiting to see what happens with those. Maybe she'll listen to us finally.
Come
when
around,
she
maybe.
sees- Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, that can happen. That's how it happens.
Okay.
Boom, a lot.
So for the listener who's out there very curious to learn more and or even pull the trigger, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Email brad@.com. I respond to all emails, even when I'm on vacation, even when I was in Southeast Europe on the boat, on the ship, we had Wi-Fi, and I responded to people. I get back within 24 hours via email I may be on vacation and can't meet with them, but we'll set something up to do that first Zoom. So brad@bradwarren.com.
Okay, we'll get that in the show notes. And anybody
Oh,
that
thank
wants
you.
to reach out,
Thank
it's
you.
a great, we love land, obviously, but this is a great way to leverage a passive style of investment, be it in a retirement account or even just on the side. Yeah, this has been great. So
Also,
for it.
1031 exchanges
Okay.
possible. They can do 1031 into land, real estate into real estate. They can do that,
That's great.
and cash and retirement funds. Those are the 3 biggest ways that our investors use.
Okay, good to know.
Brad, we like to end each episode with gratitude. Do you have anybody or anybody's that have been instrumental in your life and helped you in your journey that you want to give a shout out to?
First and foremost, if I didn't acknowledge my wife above and beyond all people, in fact, she was the reason do we have 1 minute left?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Remember I said she came with me to the hotel. She bought the 2 properties. A little while later, we're going out for dinner with Rick and Marcella. The same day my wife was dismissed, meaning fired from Oracle after 15 years, January 31st, 2018. It was a Wednesday. That same night, we had dinner scheduled with Rick and Marcella. Rick is Marcella's husband. He's a very good friend of mine, known him 25 years. And I said, we'll go and we'll tell them the story of you getting fired and laid off. And of course, they'll be very, you poor. So we get to the restaurant, we sit down, we tell them our story, and they start laughing at us. They said, what the F? Why are you laughing? Marie just lost her job. We're going to have to live on my coaching salary. And we lost a 401k and the match and all that. I said, Brad, you're not going to believe this. 2 weeks ago, when we scheduled a meeting tonight, the dinner, or had a moratorium on hiring real estate agents. Last week, they lifted the moratorium. We were coming to the dinner tonight to offer you a chance to join our team as the first agent on our team. And Marie and I looked at you, we couldn't believe it. 2.5 hours later, we're done with dinner, we're driving home, and I have not said yes. And Marie is in the car, and she goes, I don't understand. You love dirt. We've got all these properties. You love talking about it. I know you love your coaching, but you can make a lot more money being a real estate agent and selling the land. I said, Marie, they're asking me to leave a 40-year career as a speaker and trainer and business coach. She leans over in the car, and this is a direct quote. She says, Brad, you'd be an idiot not to take this career opportunity, and I did not marry an idiot. I see how you laughed. Everybody that I tell that story, I was hysterical. I almost peed my pants and drove off the road. I was laughing so hard. And I finally got the car under control, and I said, you're right. I would be an idiot, and I'm not. I will take the job. I will call Marcella in the morning, which I did on February 1st. And February 9th, 2018, my license was moved over to Velour, and I started my career as a land banker. So without my wife, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking to you guys. I wouldn't be having fun playing in the dirt and selling the dirt and being a dirt bag and a dirt man. So kudos to my wife, Marie.
Yes, great partners are great. Your guidance and career counselor there. The plain truth sometimes is great. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome. This has been enlightening. I love it. Appreciate you giving some time to us to explain a great way to invest in land. They're not making any more of it. So it's definitely a a great commodity to get into. Yeah, we'll make sure we get all that in the show notes, and really appreciate you coming on and sharing some wisdom and hopefully gaining some new clients and some future wealthy landowners.
Thank you very much for having me. And remember, folks, the best investment on earth is earth.
Oh, love it. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brad. Bye-bye. For those of you joining us today, we hope you enjoyed this time in the Champions Corner as much as we did. Got some awesome takeaways, and most importantly, will take action to continue living your best life and maximizing your potential. Mindset is such an important aspect of life, and when coupled with action, delivers undeniably powerful results.
Please subscribe to the podcast to hear from more great guests and get the latest mindset mastery insights and cash flow matchups.
Again, thank you so much for investing your time with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast.